this video just to share with you what God has been walking me through the last several months, what He is calling me to, the doors that He has opened, and just how much of His hand has been in my life guiding me and directing me. I know this is my story, so I'm a little biased about it, but it's one of the coolest things that I've seen from God in a really long time. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I would love to be able to do this in person, but due to our current pandemic crisis, I know that's really difficult. So I wanted to make this video just to share with you guys. I'm also going to be talking through what FCA is hopefully going to look like, and some ways that you can be a part of my support team. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am now. And you might be able to tell I've been crying a little bit. That's because I just ran through this, and it's super emotional and exciting because of all that God is doing. So for the last 2 years, I have taught 8th grade math at Rabun County Middle School. And then for the past year, I coached basketball at the middle school also. Prior to that, I student taught for a year at Union County Middle School, also in 8th grade math. And then prior to that, I was at Young Harris and Towns County. So I was born and raised in the mountains. This is very much my home, and I feel confident that God is opening doors for me to do ministry here too. So in 2019, towards the end of the year, probably around November, I got to this place where my prayer life really changed. And I'm still living in Towns County, so I had a 45-minute commute every day there and back, and that was my prayer time and my worship time. So in the mornings, God would give me these beautiful sunrises, and it would often make me cry, but I just remember during those times that I just was really praying and seeking the Lord and telling Him that I was ready to do more for Him. I kind of realized that I had grown to a place in my job where it felt like I wasn't doing enough. I would come home daily and just feel like I just was burdened to do more. And so I started praying that God would reveal to me what that desire was, and that He would show me more of His heart in the process too. And it was difficult because I still really loved the kids, and that's why I'm stepping into ministry too. Part of the reason is because of how much I care for them. But while I still loved them and still loved the people I was working with, there was just this discontentment with my job. So that's end of 2019, November. I get into December, and my grandmother in her incredible wisdom told me to journal all of this while I was going through it, because she knew that the enemy would be on the attack. So I want to read straight from what I wrote the night that I finally surrendered to this call. This was February 19th too, so going back in time a little bit, I wrote, "Is God calling me to full-time ministry?" And so then I said in early January, the first week into January, I remember coming home and falling apart as soon as I walked in the door, and I was just really stressed out and emotionally burdened and exhausted. And I remember that being the first time that I told my family that it felt like God was calling me to do something more. And so I shared with them that I had been praying for this over months, and then I shared with them too that in December, so right around that time that I really started praying these prayers, Jeremy Pearson at McConnell, who is the youth pastor there, I remember, I don't know what series we were in, I just remember the moment that he's preaching and sharing his heart, and he says, "I feel that God has given me the names of 3 people who are going to have, who are within this ministry, who are going to have ministries that are just magnificent." And I've told him this, I don't know if he was talking to me, but it was obvious then that the Spirit wanted that message to be for me. So it felt like he was making eye contact. I had that pit in my stomach feeling, and I just felt very deeply that the Spirit was speaking to my heart and prodding my heart. So I remember actually after that too, a student who I was really close to approached me, and she says, "Kayla, I feel confident that Jeremy was meaning that for you." And she said, and I agree with him. So that was just further confirmation too from the Father that I really needed to pay attention to what he was doing and continue to seek and pray. So I did that. And within a few weeks, I attended another church service at Macedonia, this time with my family. And I remember Pastor Wade addressing the congregation, and he said, I feel confident that someone here today is being called to full-time ministry. And then I don't know what he said after. He said something about like needing to surrender or fighting that in their spirit. And I had felt that then too. And in January, when I came home on that day and just fell apart, I was a basket case. My mom reminded me of that moment, and she said, Kayla, that's been a month ago, and he's never said it again. So again, I just continued to pray, God, if you're calling me to something more, I want to be obedient. If you're calling me to more, I'll go. I just need to know that this is from you. Because it was really hard. My flesh wanted to stay at Rabun County, especially with how well they had treated me. And I told my family the first day I walked in and on that job, everyone there made me feel like I was a part of their family. They were so supportive and encouraging. So my flesh didn't want to leave that. And even though I felt like I needed to be doing more, I was still wrestling with this idea of like, do I leave my job or do I just do more ministry here? But then at the same time, I'm like, I'm a teacher and there are certain risks that I don't want to put myself in or my administration in or my students in. So again, I just continue to pray, God, if you're calling me to more, I'll do it. I just need to know it's from you. And this is where it gets really crazy. So this is where I cried last time. I'm going to try not to cry this time. This is February 19th. So I've been praying those prayers. My family had been praying for me for about a month. And this man named Mark, who works within the student ministry at McConnell, he serves with me. He approached me one Wednesday night and he said, I feel that God is asking me to pray for you. So if you'll just hang out after church, I'm going to come find you and we're just going to sit and talk and pray. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And so I waited and his small group took longer than it's ever taken, and it felt like it had gone over time quite a bit. So I waited and he was still in small group, so I just left and I figured we would talk on Sunday or Wednesday. And after that moment, I continued to pray because it was obvious to me that whatever he had to share was important and of value. And so I was just trusting that God would speak through him. And the following Wednesday, he approached me again. And he says, Kayla, we've got to talk tonight. This message is urgent. God's really burdened me over this. And so he comes to me and I wrote down, this is paraphrased, of course. But again, just with the concept and the mindset that I've been praying for now almost 2 months, that God would speak to me and show me. He said, Mark said, you have a regal confidence about you. I know that you're a daughter of the King, and that is so special. He said, I also think that God has gifted you as a teacher. And at the time, he didn't know that I taught. I asked him, I was like, has Jeremy told you what I do for a living? And he said, no, I don't know. And so I told him that I was a math teacher, and he was in shock. He said, so I know God has gifted you as a teacher, but I believe he's calling you to teach like Jesus. He said, God wants you to know that you don't have to teach in words. Your actions like Jesus' show the Father. I also feel like God is really stretching you right now, and he's calling you to do something more. And so that word, when he said calling you to do something more, it really pierced my heart, and I knew then that it was time for me to surrender and just go and follow the Father. And then he said, don't be fearful to step into this, to whatever God's calling you to. So of course I fall apart. I'm like, let me tell you what I've been praying for the past several months. And he was really just blown away too. So we prayed together, and I spoke with Jeremy and his wife Kayla afterwards. And the following morning, as if that weren't enough from God, the following morning I'm scrolling through Facebook, and every post is a devotion about choosing calling over comfort and stepping into ministry and loving God's sheep and being fishers of men and surrendering to the gospel. Every single devotion is a post related to that. So yeah, I got to this point and I'm like, okay, God, like I prayed that you would show me it's for me, and you've shown that to me. So now is my responsibility to take action. So the next time I went to work, I told my administration and my very close coworkers that I would be resigning, and would not be there the following school year. And they were disheartened, obviously, that I was leaving, because again, we were super, super close, but also really encouraging and supportive of this ministry calling that God has placed on my life. So I surrendered. I said, yes, God, if you're sending me, I will go. And everyone's looking at me and they're like, okay, well, where are you gonna go, Kayla? Like, that's great that you feel God's calling you to ministry, but what's he calling you to? And I said, I don't know, I'm just here. And I'm this was one of the scriptures, I know this is a side note, but one of the scriptures that following morning after Mark had spoke to me, that God weaved into those devotions, and it's Isaiah 43 verse 19. And it says, look, I'm about to do something new. Even now it is coming. Do you not see it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. So just that same promise that was to the Israelites then, I feel like God was speaking over my life and my ministry, and just saying, look, I'm gonna make a way for you in the wilderness. You've surrendered, you've been obedient, and so opportunities are coming. You just have to continue to seek and pray. And so I did that, and within it wasn't even 10 days, I don't think. Within a very short period of time, this FCA opportunity presented itself, actually through Jeremy again. And he was like, Kayla, I feel like this position was designed for you. So again, in a short amount of time after that, I began meeting with people within FCA, and they kind of shared with me what the ministry looks like, and also that you're considered a full-time missionary, local missionary, so all of your support has to be raised within the community and within donors and churches and support raisers. So now that I've shared my calling and my testimony, and I'm 100% confident in that and God's hand in that, I just want to share with you what FCA is hopefully going to look like, and then share some ways too that you can give and be a support of that. So with FCA, for those of you who don't know, although I would imagine most of you do, FCA is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And what our mission is to step into school systems and provide student leaders the resources and opportunities they need to do ministry. So really my job is to provide discipleship and then engage students and athletes and coaches in the Word of God and equip them to do ministry, and then empower them to go and make disciples. So I'm really just the bridge between church and school. I'm able to go into those school systems under the name FCA and just really encourage students and build student leaders and provide them with Bibles and food and t-shirts and events, and plan for speakers and worship teams to come in. So my job really is to equip them to do the ministry and to reveal to them that they have a right in this country and in this area especially to do ministry and to feel empowered in that. They have a right to gather and pray. They have a right to gather and worship. So that's my job. And typically FCA is geared more towards team, what we call huddles, and coaches huddles. And then there's campus huddles too, and the campus side of it is really what my heart and my passion and desire is. So really what I want to do is start fresh at the high school, and ideally I would love to do it at the middle school level too, but in Towns, Union, and Rabun, really run with the idea of doing student leadership teams at each school, and then providing them the training and the resources that they need to really take off with this ministry. And then just share truth with them and encourage them. I also thought I have all of these ideas. And of course, I've already had questions too about, okay, what is this going to look like for you if we're not back on campus in August and we're not having fall sports? What is ministry going to look like? And I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't like the idea of constantly going virtual because I know our kids are tired of it. When I was finishing out the school year in April and May, I would have 50 kids on the live stream one week, and then the next week it would be 35, and then the next week would be 20. And then by the end of May, we're looking at having 5 kids join our live stream. So I know that they're tired of it, but I will utilize any resources that I have available to be able to still do ministry with them. So whether we're, getting together at a park in the community and just, sharing fellowship, or sometimes doing the virtual thing, or if I'm able to be on campus, then I'll make that happen too. But right now the goal is just to do ministry with whatever resources God provides. And I know He's called me to ministry. I know that He has called me to FCA. So if I have to get creative with what that ministry looks like, I certainly will. And I know that there are so many people. I've already experienced almost 70 hours of training, and I have an entire boot camp next week, which is going to be pushing me over 100 hours of training of how to really bring the gospel to these kids. So yeah, that's the plan right now. One thing that is already on my list of things to do is See You at the Pole. And again, I don't know what that's going to look like this year, but really working alongside those 3 communities to make sure that See You at the Pole is really a legitimate event with resources provided, and where those kids feel empowered to pray for their communities, pray for their school systems, and then worship and lift up the name of the Father too. So focus is on discipleship. And again, the intimidating part of all of this is that FCA is 100% funded by donor support. And I'm actually unable to step into the school systems under the name FCA until I'm fully funded. So what I did when I first stepped into this ministry is I spoke with 2 different people within who are my supervisors, and we kind of sat down and talked numbers, set a salary goal, and then a breakdown of what that cost looks like. And so that's what I have to raise. And my salary goal for the upcoming year is $60,000, which I know is quite a lot for a local missionary. But that $60,000, of course, I have taxes, 13 to 15 grand coming out of that for taxes, and then FCA keeps 11% of it, which is $6,600 for liability insurance and other things. And then I have set a ministry cost budget, looking at about 25% of that salary being spent just for ministry costs. So that's food for huddles, Bibles for students who approach me or approach student leaders and need one, t-shirts, any kind of event that we do, like See You at the Pole, we'll budget money from that ministry fund for that. So that's, pushing $10,000 to $12,000 of the salary, and then of course tithes and charitable donations and giving too. So even though the goal is $60,000, what I am keeping of that for living expenses is between $25,000 and $30,000. So that's why that $60,000 number is what it is. But what that means is that I have to raise $5,000 a month. So ways that you can do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link in this post, and you'll be able to access the page. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking and praying for monthly sponsors. So to join my team, you can provide a monthly sponsorship. And yeah, so you choose an amount, you say, okay, I'm going to give this monthly. If you would prefer to do it one at a time, if you're not sure like what your monthly sponsorship will look like or that it'll vary, you can do that too, but I just need to know. So you provide the sponsorship information there, and everything in the link, it's really, really accessible. So if you follow that link, you should be able to see exactly how to do that. I know that some people are not comfortable giving online. So if that is the case, if you'll just DM me or text me, I can give you an address where you can mail a check and mail your support too. So again, I'm just praying for this monthly sponsorship, and I would love to be able to meet with you personally and have lunch face-to-face or come and speak in front of churches. But until I'm able to do that, I at least wanted to share my testimony with you and just go ahead and begin this fundraising process, because again, I can't do the ministry until I'm fully funded, and that goal start date, that target date, is September 1st. So if I could have all of this money raised by then, that would be incredible, because I would be able to really start jumping into the ministry then, before fall and winter sports really get rolling. Yeah, and just one more thing too, praying and thinking about donor support. I know that's a big commitment, but I feel so confident that God blesses and is faithful to the giver. I think of Elijah and the widow, and how scary it must have been for Elijah to approach her and to ask her to feed him before she fed herself and her son. And I think too how intimidating it would have been for her to think, well, we were just going to eat this and die, and now you're asking me to put you first. But God was so faithful in that provision, and she was fed for forever. And so I'm just really praying that those who do join my support team are infinitely blessed and abundantly blessed. So all details will be shared in this post. There's also some graphics that I'm going to share here that have like specific amounts you can support me at, as well as what that money goes to and how to give. But if you have any questions or you just would like to reach out, of course, more than anything, I desperately need your prayer support. So again, if you would like to reach out, I'm also including my contact information, and I would love to hear from you. So thank you for watching. I know I was gonna try to keep it under 10 minutes, but it's looking like it's almost 22, so I'm sorry, but also really excited to be able to share this with you. So I'll see you later, and please know that I love you and I'm thankful for you, and I'm praying for blessings for you.